The USS Connecticut. This is a Seawolf-class nuclear-powered fast attack submarine. It was commissioned in 1998, and it was operating in the South China Sea not that long ago, and it collided with something. And if we take a look at the official statement from the U.S. Navy, statement regarding USS Connecticut, they say it struck an object while submerged on October 2nd while operating in international waters in the Indo-Pacific region. There were no life-threatening injuries, but there were injuries, we've found out later. They're saying that the reactor remains fully operational. It was not affected. But that's just what the U.S. Navy is saying. They're not being very transparent about this. And you could take that two ways. A submarine is designed to be secretive, to be stealthy. And no nation, not the United States, not Russia, not China, not any nation operating nuclear-powered submarines are going to be very extremely transparent about what they're doing and where they're doing it. But under normal circumstances, nations that are not acting on the international stage in a belligerent or illegal manner, you know, when they give a statement out like this, it might actually be acceptable. But we know the United States does not operate within the framework of international law on the global stage. It operates above it. The issue here is there is a lack of transparency. And this is not just something that, because if you go to the Global Times, this is Chinese state media. This is the Global Times saying more information needs to be disclosed. And of course, this is the South China Sea. This is near China. This is off their coast. This is territory they claim in the South China Sea. And this happened in that area. So of course, they're naturally concerned about a nuclear-powered submarine colliding with something. They're concerned about the lack of information. They're concerned about the possibility of the nuclear reactor being affected or leaking in the waters in the region. And they have every right to be. If it was the other way around, the United States would be understandably concerned about a Chinese nuclear-powered vessel having some sort of incident right off America's coasts. Chinese state media is going to say that. That's understandable. What about the U.S. media? This is from Forbes. Powerful U.S. Seawolf attack submarine damaged in South China Sea. And if you read through this article, they actually say kind of the same thing. They say there's a lack of information and we're going to have to wait and see. Have to wait and see what the full story was in order to know what the actual consequences of this incident is. And that's the key point, isn't it? Here's a common ground that Chinese and Western media can agree on, that this incident has implications for the peace and stability and safety of the region, the South China Sea. Now, this is a region the United States repeatedly claims that it's in to protect the region from, the threat of China, they claim. So let's just look at this CNN article. In the turbulent South China Sea, the U.S. Navy bets on a troubled warship. We're not going to get into that. What we will talk about is Vice President Kamala Harris and what she says. The reason we are here is important. Our presence in the Indo-Pacific has a long, long history, including now, of helping to guarantee peace and security, freedom of trade and commerce, freedom of navigation, and open waterways, and the rules-based international order that has brought so much safety and prosperity to many. That's the reason the U.S. claims they're in the South China Sea, but of course that doesn't make any sense, because you're implying that China is a threat to all of those things that Kamala Harris just listed, and yet we know for a fact that this is from Business Insider. This is a Western publication, and look at this. Mega money passes through these waters. The South China Sea is home to $5 trillion in annual global trade. The sea also function as the main trade route for unfinished goods between ASEAN, Japan, and China. And look at between ASEAN and China, the vast majority of the trade is benefiting China. Why would China jeopardize the movement of trade in the South China Sea when it's their trade moving through it? Here is CSIS China Power, CSIS.org. This is one of these corporate-funded think tanks whose corporate sponsors include arms manufacturers. They're extremely anti-China, and even they admit that China, by far, constitutes the global trade moving through the South China Sea. And even when you look at South Korea and Japan and you're thinking to yourself, South Korea and Japan, aren't those kind of like US allies? Maybe their trade is being jeopardized. Well, I beg to differ. This is Japan. These are exports in 2019, and you can see their two largest export markets are split between China and the United States. It's almost even. And if you count Hong Kong, they actually are sending more to China than to the United States. And of course, Taiwan is economically integrated to a large degree with the Chinese mainland. So Japanese trade with China is much larger than with the United States. So again, even though Japan is supposed to be a US ally, their trade in the South China Sea is between themselves, ASEAN, and China. China is not going to disrupt that. And it's the same story for South Korea. By far, the largest export market for South Korea is China, 26.55%. That is not an insignificant amount of trade. That is a large export market. The U.S. doesn't even come close. It's not even half that. And so China is not going to disrupt trade between themselves and everyone else in the region by creating problems in the South China Sea. They would never benefit from problems in the South China Sea. The United States would. This is why the U.S. has all kinds of ships in the South China Sea, because they're trying to provoke a crisis. There are disputes between nations in the South China Sea. There is no doubt about that. And here's a map from The Economist, a Western media source. And you can see how it's not just between China and all of these other countries, but you can see all of their claims overlap each other's as well. And they do have disputes. They will have, little confrontations out there in the South China Sea. Nations will actually seize fishing vessels. They'll send the fishermen home, but then they'll actually very publicly destroy the fishing vessels. And it's a back and forth like that. It doesn't ever get close to being a conflict, and it's something that they diffuse bilaterally. And this is what they do with China as well. The United States is inserting itself into these ongoing, pretty much ordinary disputes that nations, in close proximity to each other, are going to have over waters. They're trying to take these ordinary disputes and escalate it into a regional or global conflict. And you'll notice that the AUKUS alliance, this includes nations that are nowhere near the South China Sea. The US isn't located anywhere near the South China Sea. The UK is surrounded by the Atlantic Ocean. Australia is all the way in the southern hemisphere. So they're claiming that they're there to protect the region from China and in the South China Sea in particular, but none of the nations actually involved in these disputes are interested in joining any sort of anti-China alliance led by the United States. So the point here is the US, even under the best of circumstances, would probably be operating naval vessels in international waters through the South China Sea. I don't think that there would be anything wrong with that if it was innocent passage, but we know that that's not what the US is involved in. They're in the South China Sea specifically because of China. They say so. They say so themselves. This is about China. And so anytime you're sailing a nuclear-powered vessel anywhere, there is always some sort of risk. Now, you want to try to minimize that as much as possible. The U.S. is not doing that by sending these vessels to the South China Sea specifically to provoke a problem with China. They're not minimizing the risk as best as possible. If they're there to promote peace and stability, they should be transparent about what their Navy is doing in the region. But they cannot be, because that's not the real reason they're there. They're there to provoke and threaten and menace China. And in order to do that, they need to keep strategic advantage over China. And to do that, they need to keep everything secretive. So there will be a complete lack of transparency in regards to what went on with the USS Connecticut. And because of that lack of transparency, the US is creating a safety concern for everyone in the region. For all of that trade they claim that they're there defending, they're actually jeopardizing by this necessity to maintain a strategic advantage over China in waters off of China's own coasts. So here's another example of the United States actually provoking the problem. not presenting any sort of solution or being part of any sort of solution to the problem. This is them creating the problem in the first place, but posing as the savior of everyone in the region, when it's quite clear that no one's interested. And one final thing, again, this Rand Corporation paper from 2016, I've pointed this out many times before. They're talking about a war between the United States and China, and I've gone over this before, and what it's about is a conventional war the US would want to fight with China sooner than later. Before China becomes too powerful, they want to fight a conventional war, mostly a naval and air war, and they would want to disrupt China's trade routes. This trade through the South China Sea and through the straits of the region, the U.S. would seek to disrupt that to destroy China's economy. They don't seek, and they already know they have no chance of defeating China militarily or landing on Chinese beaches and taking over the country. They know that that's impossible. What they're seeking to do is to destroy China's economy, and that is something that's possible, at least between now and say 10 to 15 years into the future. After that, the window closes and China is too powerful for the US to pull something like that off. So this is the game plan. The game plan isn't to maintain peace and stability in the region. It's to actually wage this conventional war with China, destroy their trade. And as you saw, all of the nations in the region depend on that trade, not the United States. It's all of these other regions. I mean, look at the United States. This is what they're sending through the South China Sea versus everyone else here. So just keep all of that in mind. The US is going to pretend like it was just an innocent accident, and they're otherwise really policing the area and making it safer and better for everyone. In reality, they're undermining the peace, the stability, and the safety of everyone there. And not just in terms of provoking military conflict, but endangering civilian maritime trade as well. If you thought this video was useful, please like and share it. Think about subscribing to the channel. It's free to do, and it helps the channel grow. I have a website, newatlas.report. There are no ads. There is no paywall. You can find and follow all of my work there for free. My articles and my videos. In the video description below, I have links to all of these articles that I just referenced. There's also ways you can help support my work in the video description below. To everyone who has been, whether it's through Patreon, month to month, or one-time donations, or even if you're just helping share my work, I could not do this without that help. So thank you. And as always, thank you for watching.